So yesterday we did solving one-step equations with addition and subtraction. Now we're going to build upon that, and we're going to add in the last two operations of multiplying and dividing. So we're going to start with the golden rule. If you guys remember from yesterday, the golden rule is whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other side. So whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side. When solving equations, the goal is to get the variable by itself. So when solving an equation, you want to get that variable by itself. You want to know what number that variable is equal to or what it represents. And in order to get that variable by itself, we're going to use inverse operation. So to get rid of the number in an equation, we're going to use inverse operations. Sound familiar? So we're doing the exact same steps as what we did yesterday. We're just adding in multiplying and dividing. You all have it down? Variable by itself, yeah. Okay, so example number 1. A divided by 3. We're going to set these problems up exactly like what we did yesterday. So we're going to circle our variables and we're going to draw our line of equality before we even start solving. So I'm going to circle my variable. I'm going to draw my line of equality. From here, Darius, what do I do? Yeah, because the inverse operation of divided by 5 is multiply by 5. I don't use x to show multiplication in algebra. Why might I not use the x to show multiplication? Yeah, it could look like a variable. So I always just do the little dot to show multiplication. I don't know why I put 3. So if I'm going to inverse operation, the opposite of division is multiply. Golden rule, whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So that's going to cross out, right? I'm going to bring my variable a down. Then what's 3 times 5 here?
15.
15. Resuming. Do you guys all have this one down? Make sure when I walk by, make sure your variable is circled. Make sure your final answer is boxed. All right, next one. Example number 2. Now remember that little dot is going to be multiplication. So we're going to set our problem up exactly the same by circling our variable because we're going to do that every single time from here on out. Now the opposite of multiplication is what, Deontay? Division. So I'm going to divide. I use the bar to show division. So you can use the division sign. You can do the division sign too. I just like to use the bar. So I'm going to show that I'm dividing it by 4 on both sides. Show that my 4's cancel on my left. I bring down my variable. I bring down my equal sign on my line of equality. Then what's 36 divided by 4, Demonte? Did I just make his name up? Deontay. I've called him Demonte all day, and no one's fixed me. Deontay. 36 divided by 4. 36 divided by 4. That's all right. And YouTube has you caught cussing in my class. So what's 36 divided by 4? Mr. Neal and Mr. Seagrace, did you hear that? Deontay is cussing in my class. All right, get back on. Go. 36 divided by 4.
What?
Deontay's mom, do you hear that?
Oh, that's in the audio record.
Deontay, help him out. 9. So since that's my final answer, I'm going to go ahead and box it. Hey guys, bring it back down. So, when I look at your example problems should look exactly like mine. You should have your variable circled. Your line of equality should go through both equal signs. Your final answer should be boxed. So make sure your example problems resemble mine. Example number 3. 8c. Can you start getting talk-outs, please, for me? Deontay, step out. 8c equals 32. 8c equals 32. Take a minute to go ahead and write it on your notes. See if you can solve it. Yes, you're still going to circle the variable. Now, looking at this one, you have a number touching a variable. Kelsey, when you have a number touching a variable, what operation is that asking you to do? Multiply. So we're going to do the opposite of multiply and divide. So I'm going to show my division with the bar underneath. So if I divide by 8 on one side, I have to divide by 8 on the other side. My left side, it cancels. So I bring down my variable c equals, then what's 32 divided by 8, Rihanna? It is 4. Since that's your final answer, you're going to box it. So even though that variable is touching that number, you're still going to circle it. Because that's your goal, is still to get that by itself. That's your visual saying nothing on that side should remain besides that variable. All right. Example number 4. Read this one to me. Jemiah, how would you read this problem to me? Yeah, so d divided by 3 equals 7. So since we're already in the habit, circle my variable, draw my line. Now, Jemiah, what's the opposite, or what's the inverse operation of division? Multiplication. So instead of dividing by 3 to get it by itself, I'm going to have to multiply by 3. So I'm just going to write it off to the left like this and use my dot to show multiplication. Because I don't want to use the x because that could be misconstrued as a variable. So whatever I do to one side of the equation, I do to the other. So I show that these cancel. So Jemiah, what do I bring down on my left side? And what else do I bring down on this side? The d? Good. So since I got that variable by itself, I bring down the d. Then on my right side, I evaluate or I solve. So what's 7 times 3, Jemiah?
21.
And since that's my final answer, I need to make sure I box it. Questions on the first 4? Okay. Let's take a look at example number 5. Okay, this one's going to be tricky. What operation is it asking me to do, Darius? Can you actually rewind? Let's back up a little bit. Read this to me. If this was a problem on a test and you were reading it to yourself, how would you say that? What does negative 7e mean to do? Which operation? Okay, this is where you're going to have to pay attention to the difference. It doesn't say negative 7 plus e, does it? That's a 6. Negative 7 plus e, it has negative 7 touching the e. Anytime that number directly touches the variable, it means to multiply. The operate or the sign in front of the number then is a positive or a negative. Kind of like a Mr. or Mrs., right? How'd you guys know that I was going to be a Mrs. on your schedule? Did it say Mrs. Lidekin? So you knew I was going to be a female. You knew what type of male or female I was going to be. So it said female. Same thing here. The number is touching the variable. You know it's multiplication. You know what type of number it is based on a minus or a plus. So when you go do the inverse operation, so what's the inverse operation of multiplication going to be? Division. So what are we going to divide by? What kind of number is this? So we're going to divide by a negative number. So that negative goes with it. So we're going to show that that cancels on our left. So then I'm going to bring down my variable e. It's now by itself. My equal sign on my line of equality. So now in your calculator, or if you're not going to use your calculator, you're going to take 28 divided by negative 7. What's 28 divided by negative 7? Kelsey? Negative 4. And that's your final answer. So box it. Oh, it's 9. Okay. We're going to go ahead and stop there. We'll resume these when we come back.